Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here. Today we are joined with a special guest. We are joined by Dom Vargas from the United States. Hi Dom.
Morning, Colin, or good afternoon to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's great being able to talk to people on the other side of the world and where we're living kind of simultaneous lives, but at different times. It's cool. I enjoy it. So Dom, just to introduce Dom, Dom is an Exhorter-WHY. Intangible Driver. Dom has done a bit of work with John Lenhart. I'm sure everybody has seen my videos with John that's watching this. And Exhorter-WHY is a person who likes to be felt. They like to be understood. These people are like the cheerleaders of life. They are the cheerleaders of people, you know, to kind of shout them up the hill, to push them on to be their best, you know, and they can be quite excitable. Now, what happens is when they're not felt the way that they're trying to come out, sometimes they can go inside themselves again because they feel that they're not getting the message out properly or they're not doing something properly. Now, Dom, would you like to elaborate on how your experience of being an Exhorter-WHY is, please?
Absolutely, Colin. But first, I'd like to share, I guess, the textbook definition. I don't know if it's the textbook, but if you take the test, this is what it'll give you. And it'll say something like, if you're an Exhorter-WHY, you'll get energy by filling a need in order to encourage people about the future, that's perfect. Right? Anybody that knows me will know I'm like Emmett from the Lego movie. Everything is awesome. So that's like the textbook definition for those that don't know. And in a nutshell, I'd say in terms of like arc of life, when I didn't know about this stuff, when I couldn't connect the dots, a lot of my earlier life, which I'm sure I'll talk about, especially in high school when I started to grow more as a person, and even in college, the first couple of years, it was a big feeling of, why are people so mean to me? Why is everybody like, why do they hate me? I'm just trying to bring some positive energy and happiness in life. And a big mix of, oh, these people don't get it, which that really wasn't the case. It was just me being an exhorter, not understanding that they did not understand that or didn't want that kind of energy. And so that was a lot of the early experiences as an exhorter who didn't understand other people as well as they thought. And I was such a, people see me on the outside like, oh, that guy, look at him. He's talking to people. He's doing all these cool things. And I get to them and they're like, oh my gosh, like, chill out, dude. It's just at 8 a.m. Like, you don't need to be this energetic. And I still get some of that today, but now I understand a lot more in terms of understanding people, understanding how to interact with them a lot better. But two years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, I definitely things weren't connected. I knew a lot, but I didn't know this stuff. So things weren't connected, and there was just a lot of loose ends that I could never quite tie up or close because I didn't know this. So that if I had to describe the early experiences as an exhorter, that's kind of like what it was like. Definitely had the pros and cons in the sense that people on the outside were like, wow, that dude is so happy all the time. And, really I would go home and, like I've shared before, I would go home and like, cry myself to sleep kind of thing because I wasn't really happy. It was just that exhorter woohoo mask thing that I put on for the world to see.
Yeah.
And that's the early experiences of an exhorter. And now I'm as an exhorter that understands himself better and why I do what I do and why others do what they do in terms of understanding intangible drivers and uniqueness. I'm definitely in a more mature phase. I can contain it now. I know how to use it. I know when to actually put the seasoning on food. I know when to, okay, I'll actually not lose energy if I don't go into this room trying to hype everybody up because they don't want it kind of thing. So that's the early and now experiences of an Exhorter-WHY who didn't understand before and now has a better grip. I don't know it all now. I'm no John, but I do know a little bit. I know a little bit now to get through and have healthy interactions with others and to have and gain energy through interactions, or sometimes, which is the best option, to be at zero energy, where you're not leaving feeling like, oh man, but you're also not leaving like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You're just like, all right, I did what I had to do to get through that and not be worse off than I was before.
I love that. Now, John's obviously spoken to us at length about intangible drivers. Now, exhorters tend to be, as I was speaking about the cheerleaders, coaches, life coaches, and you see them, we won't mention any names. We know several big names on LinkedIn and several names, in the world that are exhorters. And what you'll see is you'll see them cheering people on for a while, but if their intangible drivers not being met, they will disappear. And they will disappear for periods of time. Now, when people believe in depression and things, so people can see these people as being depressed, where they're just not understanding their intangible drivers, which, until I met John and spoke just about 13 months ago, I understood what compassion was. I understood I was a compassion server without the words. You understood you were an exhorter without the words.
Yep.
Now that we've had the words given to us, and now that we are all able to give the words to other people, the world could genuinely be a different place. I was speaking to a psychologist yesterday, and I was talking to her, and the way John explains it is that if you get 10 stages of the mind, the brain, behaviors, and everything, psychology will give you 3 to 10. And John will give you stages 1 and 2, which is the kind of cause and effect. It'll give you the main ingredients, because you need to start at the beginning. If you've only got the end of a story, you're not going to understand it. Now, in terms of the way that you've now found out what your intangible driver is, how has that changed and affected your life?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I love talking about it. I have to say, when I first met John, like yourself, about year and a half ago, it was like the best way I describe it is like things just started clicking. Like something just went, yeah, that makes sense. That's right. And some people might be like, what? But I want to share that even with others, like my own girlfriend, for example, who I've tried to teach a lot about this. She's like, whatever. But funnily enough, she still uses all this stuff that I taught her in her daily life, and even with her family. She'll come back and be like, oh yeah, my mom's totally an administrator, but she had told me 2 weeks ago, like, oh, this stuff is baloney. Like, nah. And the reason I share this, because I think it makes sense. It does connect with people. It does click. It does feel right. People are settled even when they denounce what I just taught them. They're still using it because it makes sense. Even their brain knows, like, that makes sense. You might say it doesn't, but it does. So we're going to keep talking about it until you come to terms with it. And so that's what it was like for me. It was much easier for me to kind of get on board because it just made sense. It was like, wow, it was like that song. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. The rain was gone when John, taught me this stuff. And I was like, oh, that's why I thought people hated me. They don't. I was just exhorting on them. And they're like, bro, I'm a perceiver, like, get away from me, or like, that's why I, understood why I'm so good at certain things, and other people, they could be good at it, but they don't get energy doing it, right? When it comes to going in front of a room full of people and getting them jacked up, and if they do reciprocate, and I'm like, wow, like, awesome. Meanwhile, maybe on the opposite side of the spectrum, the receiver's like, okay, cool, I don't want to do that, That's why with my sister, for example, I don't necessarily always get along with her. For a long time, it was the big, I don't get it. What's going on? We were raised in the same house. We grew up literally doing a lot of the same things. She's my twin. We're not the same people, but we had the same parents, same upbringing, all that. But yet we still have a big, almost like we don't even know who we are. And then I realized, oh, well, that's because I'm over here in exhorter land, and she's over here in perceiver teacher land. That's why we don't necessarily always get along, because I didn't understand that. And so I'd always be exhorting on her, like, that's all right. Like, life's going to be beautiful. Meanwhile, she's like, no, you don't get it, kid. You don't understand what life is like, And I'm like, what? We're the same age. So that's kind of like, that's what it was like for me when I was introduced to intangible drivers and uniqueness. Things started to click. And beforehand, I thought I was a networking master. I thought I knew, what it was like to meet people and get to read them and know who they are, which I think is an exhorter thing, to kind of feel someone out when you're just talking for the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it clicked, like, wow, that's because I was living in my uniqueness at times, and I didn't even know it. and I was understanding others without knowing. Like you said, we are able to put the words to what we're feeling and thinking and knowing without actually knowing. So that's what it was like for me. It was like the curtains were peeled back, and it's like, this is what you've been trying to look for and thinking and knowing all this time. You just didn't know it.
Yeah.
John happened to be the catalyst for me to get my brain to go, aha. It's like an aha moment, eureka.
Yeah, it's mega. Now, how do you feel in terms of, since you've learned the intangible drivers, obviously we've got some of your story there. How do you feel now that you understand and now that you can almost spot, you know, it becomes better with practice. So you can actually check out who other people are, what their intangible drivers are. And it's almost like you know now that if you exhort onto them, that it won't come back, so that the expectation has almost been lowered or taken away from some instances.
Yep. So one example that popped into mind, the story, is with classes. When I first came to the big university, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the world's greatest showman. When I really should have focused on being a student, I was like, I gotta, the connections are much more important, which is somewhat true. But I would go to class, wearing suits. It was really my suit of exhorter armor. And then I would, literally work the entire room, almost like I was some game show host in these big lecture halls, shaking people's hands, introducing myself, talking to them, getting them excited about the class, even though even myself thought it was boring. But in doing that, I was trying to draw energy from them so I could feel better about being in the class.
Yeah.
It didn't always work. It's like I said, these are, young people who are looking at me like, some people are like, this dude's crazy. Some people are like, man, I wish I had what he has, like whatever he's taking in the morning when he comes to class. But a lot of times, because it wasn't being reciprocated, the exhorter energy I was throwing out was not coming back. I ended up feeling worse off. Like, I'm doing all this like energy giving and it's not working out. I'm drained. I'm falling asleep. I don't want to be here. It's like, class. And so I've learned to tone that back. It's funny because a year and a half, 2 years ago in college, you would see me as some super crazy, like everybody knows Dom. Because look, if he's not even talking, they still know who Dom is. You can point him out anywhere. Not saying that's not the case now, but because I've learned to kind of slowly but surely and mastering more of the exhorter ways, now I know not to go into a room if it's not my context and just start blasting away like it is.
Yeah.
Right? So I know, like in classes, you'll see me more often than not, I'm a quiet person now, because I've learned, unless I'm going to get what I'm actually wanting out of intentionally going out like, hey, what's up? Then I'm not going to get any energy. So it's better off for me to just actually go to class and, for example, just kind of maybe talk to the few people around me, but not the entire class like I used to, right? I don't need to be the world's greatest showman in the class context because I won't get energy by doing that. Now, if I'm doing presentations, I can let it all out. Then people are like, oh, where did he come from? But if I did it the reverse, like I did for the first year of college, I would be worse off for it. In terms of energy, I would be depleted.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned in the beginning, now classes for me is the zero energy stage. I'm not trying to gain it because it doesn't work, but I don't want to lose it because then, oh man, yeah. You don't know this. Oh yeah, I told you this a couple, maybe like 6 months ago? I don't even know how long ago I told you, like, oh man, school, school. Ugh. So, and that was why.
And I would just like to touch on the fact now you are doing customer service and you're doing customer service daily. Okay, you're still doing that, aren't you?
In ways, yes.
Yeah.
I'm transitioned.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, you can fill us in about that.
Sales is customer service, is all the other jobs. So yes, it is customer service. I just happen to be selling stuff.
Awesome. Well, do you know, when you and I met, we were both for the truth. And we like to talk about truth a lot. We like to open situations up and expose them for what they are, in terms of maybe the way that people are, in terms of the way that the world is, and how people are making things worse for themselves. Now, a few conversations ago, I think maybe we're going back almost a year, and I didn't realize, I am 37 years old, okay? I didn't realize that I was talking to somebody quite significantly younger. if I'm completely honest. I don't mean that in a derogatory or put down way. I mean, it's genuinely like it's giving you the biggest compliment ever, because it's as if you had all this wisdom and this, all this because we looked at similar things. Now, that was what brought us together, was the truth. Okay, the truth in situations, and we just clicked, and it allowed us to kind of roll this road together. We got to know each other, and it was we were able to then cross paths, similar to John and I, and you and John also, and we all managed to get into this kind of trio of let's want to understand each other. Now, in terms of while you're in the customer service sales role, okay, do you feel that it helps to understand yourself better while doing your job?
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100,000 million percent. When I'm a future boss, or excuse me, leader rather, I'm definitely going to steal this flow test. Like, hey, if you want to work here, I was joking the other day, like, you got to take the Intangible Driver Test. Then you have to read Atlas Shrugged, and that's how you get an interview. But it definitely helps to understand, yourself and others. And I say that because, for a long time, I'd say the first 5 years of my work experiences, I was having fun at work, but I come to a point where it was like, now I'm losing energy. And it's like, well, why am I doing it? And so I look to, okay, maybe it's because, my bosses are doing this and corporate does this, so, which that's somewhat true. But I look back and really is because, one, I wasn't in my ideal context, I think. And then two, I didn't know what I know now. So I wasn't actually going, oh, you know what? As an exhorter, these are the kind of things, the situations I like and do well in. So let me put myself into more of that. I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it fast enough, if that makes sense. And so, last year I was in this job where it was a great experience, but it was so draining. And then just so happened, I also learned about my intangible driver. So like, you know what? Let me find a role where I can like live in that the whole time, which is why I found myself a new home in the sales world, because I can live in it the whole time. Yeah, there's some things I don't necessarily like, but my whole job is, hey, go be an exhorter and sell this product. I'm like, perfect. You had to say less. Like, I can do that all day. People are like, oh, we got to make phone calls. I'm like, phone calls? Give me all the phones. Let's talk. Let's freaking hype people up. Like, hey, I got the best product here for you, stuff like that. I don't do that, but I can be an exhorter without, being drained unless I get like a bad customer. But even then, it's still fun because I'm in the context that I like. And I'm not saying all exhorters need to go work in sales and customer service, but the whole aspect of, I want people to feel what I feel, got a lot of energy to give, and usually it's pretty darn happy energy. And people like that, especially if you're calling them and they don't know who you are. Random person, oh, this is pretty nice. Oh, okay, cool. And then usually they hang up as soon as they hear me tell them I'm selling insurance, but that's okay. That's fine. On to the next one. Time to go exhort some more. So I love that. And to answer your question, yes. And in fact, my internship last summer, they asked me, what's one thing you would change? And, I didn't really have any complaints, right? Didn't have any improvements for what they were doing, what they have going on in terms of hiring people. They do a really great job, the company. It's called Cummins. But I did tell them, it's like, what you should do is really have people lay out. Well, I told them to take the Uniqueness test, which they were like, what is that? I was like, okay, whatever. But, have people write out their PVS, their personal vision statement. And in that, which I think is connected to your intangible drivers, because then people will come to work knowing how they can gain energy and not just being there. Because I've witnessed a lot of people just kind of there. Successful, right? No doubt. They've got all the great titles, all the merit, all the rise to the ranks. But if you talk to them, you can just feel they're just doing it because they're just doing it. They're not necessarily like, we actually, this is our ideal context. It's like, it just happened. And I just let it happen, But these are like people who are 30, 40. You're like, do you even know who you are? They're like, yeah, of course I do. But really, they're probably like, no, I don't. I think part of the reason why is maybe because they haven't necessarily taken time to figure that out yet, or haven't had an experience to make them have to figure it out. But also, it's easy for me to say because I've introduced people like John who have taught me about intangible drivers, which have allowed me to learn even more about myself. So that was a long-winded answer. I just exhorted. See, that's what exhorters do, everyone. But yes, to your question, yes, it definitely helps.
No, that's magic. So the way that I'm compassion server, so I need to feel people before I can serve them in the way that is needed for them, okay? And I used to be in a few sales roles, and I was particularly good at sales. And it wasn't because of my sales skills or my product knowledge, it was because I was able to get into the person. Although when I was trying to sell something to somebody, the minute that I felt that they were uninterested or they didn't want it, I would give up because I couldn't push the sale on them. Now, I'm not saying that you've not got a conscience, right? But what I'm saying is it's easier for an exhorter to just push a product and keep pushing the excitement in order to get that sale. I didn't have that capability, and I didn't know about the intangible drivers at that time, which again, it was very interesting once I kind of look back on my life, and I can see the exhorters that were doing, they were the ones that were getting loads of sales and they were always busy. And I was the guy that would sit down with them for 2.5 hours to sell a car and like talking about their family problems. And, you know, they were just spilling all this information to me. And I'm like, yeah, I feel you, I get you. And okay, so you're looking for something that's going to fit this budget and it's going to allow these kids to come in. And, you know, I was able to do it that way. And I was quite a successful salesman because of that. But I just wasn't as successful in terms of numbers because these people didn't bother as much about the person. It was more about the product. And that makes a massive, massive difference when people understand that intangible driver. So I'm going to put on this video, I'm going to put the intangible drivers test as well, because I know that a lot of people understand you, and I know that a lot of people listen to you because of the sense that you speak. And literally it's like talking to like a Gandalf, right? It's like you have got this wise hat on, and you know, you that's it. And you literally do speak all this sense, and people respect you for that. But you also don't do it in a way where you're forcing it. You know, you just do what's natural to you, exhorting onto them, and then they feel that they're gaining energy from you. You know, and it's magical. It's a magical trait. But I find they're hard to come by, the ones that understand themselves. And I believe any coaches that are exhorters, any of these jobs that require other people to look up to them or look onto them, it's like they need to understand the intangible drivers. And just think of the head start that you've got in life. I'm not going to mention the people again, but look at the head start that you've got in life. So when you've finished your school, you've done everything that you've meant to do, and you reach this stage and you know yourself. And there's people out there doing the job that you're going to be doing for 20 years and they don't know themselves, and they still don't understand why they hit a brick wall every so often.
I know it, Colin. I even before I knew this, you know, it was a big battle. Like, no, like I can't feel that way. I'm only young. Like that's not fair. You know, really was me not allowing myself to be confident in myself, if that makes sense, because I was selling myself short just because I was younger. And I'm still young now, but, you know, even, 2 years ago, I thought, like, wow, you know, I'm pretty dang mature. And there's a lot of reasons I think I am. Experiences, parents, the knowledge that I just wanted to seek. Couldn't explain why, but just, you know, let me read that book right there, which I think books are one of the greatest life hacks. But even then, you know, I look up to others like, man, you know, you're supposed to be my senior, but I can sense that you don't necessarily know all that you're talking about. And, you know, especially with other exhorters, if I can see another exhorter, you know, for me, or key indicator of an exhorter who doesn't necessarily know themselves, right, is someone who's putting on a show. But you can tell. Most people can't. Most people, I think, just see it for the surface level face value. They see the mask and they think the mask is the person. But I more see the mask and I'm like, you know, you're like me 2 years ago. You go home and you probably don't like yourself. You cry yourself to sleep. You're thinking a lot about things. You're not actually getting out what you're feeling because you think this is what the people want. And you're giving it what you think, but it's really, you know, kind of damaging you in the long run. So I love that you mentioned that, because even still to this day, you know, I see those things. And not just with the exhorters, with a lot of people. It's easier for me to spot the exhorter because I've been there, done that kind of thing. Still learning about all the other intangible drivers, but with people in general, I call it the vibe check.
Yeah, the vibe. Absolutely, absolutely vibe. So just to finish off, I would like to ask you for any other exhorter or anybody that has listened to our video today, is there anything you would like to say to them to help them understand apart from try the test?
Right. Yes, several things. Because I'm thinking about my own experiences as an exhorter. One thing I like to touch on is like in relationships, because we talked a little bit about that before we started talking today. There's a lot of times my girlfriend will tell me like, you're not listening. You don't get it. And in my head, I'm like, but I am though. Like I am listening. And there's more to it than just being an exhorter, but I want to share that. And it's not just with, romantic relationships, with people in general. Maybe if you feel like you're an exhorter and somebody's telling you like, you're not listening, you never listen, but you're going, yeah, I do. Like I do listen. Like what? Well, you probably are listening because I do listen, but on the flip side, I'm not actually letting them be heard. I'm not actually, repeating it back, letting them know, oh, yes, I'm understanding your intangible driver. I'm actually going, yeah, I'm listening, but I'm an exhorter. So anyways, let's talk about this thing that's going on over here, or actually, you want to talk about yesterday, but let's talk about 5 years from now in the future kind of thing. So if you feel like you're an exhorter, someone's telling you you're not listening in any relationship, you gotta, or I challenge you to take a step back and tell them, explain to them that you are listening in your way and ask how you can listen in there. That's how I found to better let my girlfriend to be heard. But it's not just with her, it's with other people. Actually, someone the other day told me, they didn't tell me, they're using a conscious conversation. And they don't even know this stuff, but they did it. And they're like, have you heard of effective listening? I was like, are you telling me I need to be a better listener? And they're like, you should try it. And, I look back like, yeah, they're right. Because I do listen, but at the same time, I don't necessarily listen. I don't let you be heard. I think this is different. There's two differences. I'm listening, but I don't always let you be heard. So that's one thing I want to share with people who might feel like exhorters. Another thing is figure out your ideal situations and contexts where you actually gain energy. And I'm not talking about pseudo energy, because for the longest time, or at least it felt like a long time, but definitely in high school and in the first year and a half of college, I was gaining pseudo energy. I call it that because, I was going to classes thought I was feeling great. I was hyping people up, world's greatest showman, super excited. And it's great because that's how people remember me. But deep down inside, like I mentioned in the video, I was going home, crying myself to sleep. And it's because I was carrying a lot of stuff, but I wasn't actually getting it out. I wasn't letting myself feel it. Wasn't talking it out with people. Wasn't processing. It was all just up here. But I put on that exhorter mask, like, all right, it's time to go to war. And just going out there like, yeah, I'm the happiest person and you need to be happy too. And really I wasn't, I was giving out really bad medicine to people and it wasn't working. People, whether they knew it or not, I think they could feel that, which is why I had those not so good interactions, which is why I was like, why are people so mean? Why does nobody get me? And I think looking back is because I didn't even get myself. So for all my fellow exhorters out there, don't fall into the exhorter trap of putting on your everything's awesome mask and going on about your day like everything is when it's not. You gotta let yourself feel even the bad things, even if it's not positive, because in the end it will be positive. So those are the last two things that are kind of on the top of my mind about being an exhorter I wanted to share with others.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today, Dom. It's been absolutely fantastic to catch up and fantastic to catch this on video. And thank you also for being so open. Again, exhorters do like to talk about themselves, which is good. So you were gaining energy while explaining to people who they are as well. So, I mean, this has it's literally been perfect. And I have felt more of you, which means that I've been able to gain more energy as well. So it's been awesome. So I look forward to speaking to you again in the future and we'll definitely get another video. So thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Colin. Have a good day, sir.
Hey, man. Bye.